Why, hello everybody. This is Classical Homesteading Practices. And if you can't tell, the audio sounds so much better. I sound so good right now, and that's because I finally hooked up my mic to the podcasting system. So hopefully everything in the podcast from here on out is going to sound fantastic, which is going to be great because we are going to be talking to the much wanted topic. And I mean very much wanted because this lady has just been giving you nothing but chicken and turkey and bird info galore. But this is supposed to be classical homesteading practices. Why haven't I given you any homesteading info at all yet? And the reason being is because, well, I thought it was very pertinent for people to learn a little bit about the animals side. And I finally wanted to just do all my research, get everything in order before I sat down and had this conversation with everybody, because this is the beginning of a very large journey for people who want to do homesteading, and it is a very important conversation. So getting everything down that I wanted to and sharing it with you is, well, very important. So I hope you're as excited as I am to listen to this podcast today. We are going to be getting into homesteading, starting with the basics. All right, so let's get into it. Now, I believe that there are four main things that you need to look into or think about when going into homesteading. It's not really about the land, it's not about the home, it's all about you and your family. And I say you because you could be the only person who's going to be doing this, or you could have a family attached to you who is ready to go and start homesteading. And you can do this in any location, whether it be out in the country, with or without Wi-Fi, electricity, water's out of the window, like you're only pumping it from a river or a well. Or you could be doing it in the middle of the city, and it's fully electrical, you have all the whizzing doodads you want, but you're still being sustainable through your own means of technology, plus animal and garden products that you're getting from your own home. Because you got to remember, homesteading is all about self-sustainability in the area that you're at, which means you're getting all of your food, all your necessities from your homestead, which I personally like to think of going into this first topic as what you need to learn. Well, first off, you need to be willing to learn. You need to have the want to learn in order to get anywhere, because if you want to go on homesteading, there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to have to figure out and find out, whether it be raising chickens, turkeys, and ducks, which I already have on the podcast, or what we're going to be going into, like gardening, building, making sure you have all the supplies for your animals and for your garden and for your family, because there's a lot of supplies that goes into becoming self-sustaining. There's a lot of learning in different areas. You have to become a jack of all trades when it comes to your homestead. I mean, you don't have to, because we do live in the age of contractors, but if you want to be self-sustaining, if you want to have it be you, basically, and you want to be independent, learning is such a humongous skill to have, and it is a skill that you need to be ready and willing to use it, to sharpen it, and to just absorb everything around you. Which goes into our next topic. You need to find out what you need. So, what do you need to start a homestead? And think about this really large, like in depth. Go ahead and sit down and actually do a storyboard or something with it, because what you need and what you want may be two different things, but there's a lot of necessity that comes into making a homestead. I mean, think about when it was the 1800s and we had pioneers going across America. They needed to have supplies. They needed to be able to hunt, fish, make a house, have clothing available to them, make a fire, chop wood. Everything was something that they learned so that they could build off of their homestead, build off of their skills to survive in the land. And we don't really think about that much because, again, all of this convenience is surrounded by us. But the needs that you want to take with you and away from your stores is kind of crazy when you think about it. Because for me personally, my needs are, I want to be able to clothe myself. I want to be able to feed myself. I want to make sure that I have a home over my head. So those are our necessities. Those are the needs to make us happy individual people. And this can be facilitated through learning the skills of making clothes, sewing, learning how to plant a garden through growing our own food, and also raising our own animals for meat, dairy, eggs, and so on. Also spinning fiber and making clothing ourselves. But that's for the hardcore, advanced, down the line homesteader. And the reason why I say that is because there's so much basic, fundamental things that you need to learn first before going into making your own clothes. We have stores still. You don't have to go hog wild into the, 40,000 acres and never be seen again independence. You can still just start with baby steps. But you need to figure out what your needs are going to be when you start your homestead. And this is also financial necessity. Do you want to go and purchase a home, which is going to be out in the country, and you're going to be homesteading from there? Or do you want to make a small setup at your house, which is going to cost money? For me, my financial necessity was around $2,000 when I kicked off my garden and also getting everything set up for my backyard ducks and chickens. And then on top of it, there was the supplies that was necessary to raise them, and also to have garden boxes and garden supplies like the dirt and the tools and the little containers that you need to start the seeds in. You also need to buy the seeds. You need to buy the housing, like a greenhouse. Even when it comes to making a greenhouse yourself, you have to go ahead and purchase the materials for it in order to make it. That all costs something, and that, adds up very quickly, as I found out. And I want to be able to pass this along to you, this thought of how much do you think you're going to need in order to start a homestead to the ability that you want. And you need to sit down and figure out what you want on your homestead. And also, you need to understand the strengths of your homestead and your land, because this will help you when it comes to figuring out your needs and what you already have. And let's go into that. Let's go into the third topic of understanding the strengths of your land, the usability, the resources that it already has. And that can be very helpful for you in the long term. So say you already have a house, whether you're renting or you've paid it all off and you're a homeowner. How much land do you have? For me, I have under a quarter an acre, and I have 7 raised garden beds, which is over 100 square feet. And I have a decent sized garden where I grow most of my summer food. And then I have ducks right now, and I'm about to be getting chickens. And that is taking up a considerable amount of that. I want to say I probably have a 16th of an acre. Yeah, we'll say a 16th of an acre. Now, for somebody who wants to do it on a larger scale and feed their family year-round, whether it's up north or down south, you need to see how much land you have available to you. You need to know if you have good land quality, if you can grow in the ground, or if you're going to have to purchase materials to grow above ground. Also, natural resources are very nice to have, like a water reservoir. For instance, a pond or a lake to feed your livestock can be a very lovely resource for you because you don't have to haul water for them. You don't have to worry about them ever needing water because you have that resource for them. Also, if you have a well that helps you out, you don't have to pay for water. The only thing that you need to worry about is maintenance on your land for that well, which as long as everything goes fine and dandy, you shouldn't have to mess with that well for 50 years. You will need to change out pump filters and pumps, of course, but when it comes to the well itself, as long as there isn't an earthquake that is earth-shattering, that is a very big resource that I highly suggest looking into. But don't go out of your way in making a resource. So don't make a well because that can cost you 3, 4, 50 times more than you were expecting to in having a homestead. Digging a well can cost you up to $50,000, which is something I would not say to anyone to go ahead and do. That is a humongous amount of money that you can put somewhere else. Instead, you could do a cistern, for instance, which we will talk about in later episodes. But also, besides a well or lake or land, you can also look at your home setup. You can see, all right, do we have electricity? Great. Do we have an extra room to start crops in? Great. Do we have a garage? Wonderful. Or a lean-to or a shed that you can put animals in already instead of having to make it yourself. These are all resources for you so you can start off ahead of the game. You have the infrastructure to do better for yourself and for your homestead. Which, at the end, which leads us to the big finale, number 4, writing all of this down and making sure that you know what you have. So, write down your dream. Write down everything. And I'm talking about getting a big piece of paper or a poster board or something, get a Sharpie out and start making a poster or a dream board, basically. So smack dab in the middle, write down your homestead name or your last name and put everything else that you want in your homestead around that because you're going to be building up your homestead with that poster board. So, for instance, I have my homestead, classical homesteading practice, and out from it, we're going to be talking about, okay, I have good land, so I'll take that and I'll put that out there. I have an extra shed on my land. I have a greenhouse from the previous owner. There's already a well, so we're set up in that way. We don't have a lake, so we're going to have to figure out something else when it comes to the animals, but we have a place for them to be put in, or at least some of the animals in that shed. We don't have to build another infrastructure for a little while, so we don't need a barn right now. We can wait on that. Oh, look here. Because we already have a greenhouse, we can extend our gardening period. Great. But maybe you live up north, so you're going to need to have an extra room. Well, we don't really have an extra room, but we have a large closet. Okay, that's totally great. You can start your seedlings in a closet. Oh, and look here, we already have lights. So we can set up our lights, we can start our seedlings in there, and when the weather is better, we can put them in the greenhouse, and we can go from there. And thankfully, because we have good land, we don't have to make any infrastructure for garden boxes or container gardening, so we can just put it all in the ground. Yes, the manual labor for it is going to be a little bit harder, which is a skill that you're going to need to learn. But that's part of growing your toolbox, your skill as a homesteader. Just learning all of these things and putting them down so it's tangible, it's physical, will help you get an idea of what you want and what you have. And hopefully you can figure out from there what your next steps are going to be. Now, for people who are dreaming right now, make this a classroom. Make this a time where you can just learn as much as possible. So once you have the money or the means to start a homestead, you're already halfway there. And what I mean by that is that you already have the skills to build things. You already have the skills to be a gardener and self-sustain your food source by yourself. For me personally, we are living in a rental right now. I have used this time as a waiting room and putting it into a classroom where I have learned gardening for northern climates. And I'm doing so I can take warm weather gardens and put it into a cold climate where I'm able to pick everything and be able to eat as much as possible for me and my family. Now, this year's garden, from what I've learned, I'm going to be able to sustainably nourish us for at least a couple of months. And with that knowledge, I can build off of it for next year so I can do it for a couple more months. And then after a couple of years, I will be able to take care of us full time. And I'll never have to go to the grocery store again. That is what I'm talking about of making this waiting room, this time where you aren't able to have a homestead or do it on a large scale, into a classroom where you can just learn as much as possible and take it forward. In this year alone, I have learned how to build a chicken coop and different infrastructures like a duck coop, a workbench, a greenhouse, and garden beds. I've learned this year how to better myself in gardening and how to properly raise a larger amount of chickens than I previously was able to. On a grand scale, before I lived in this rental, I took care of 7 goats, 45 chickens, 8 turkeys, a duck, and I had about 5 acres that I lived on of beautiful land. But that doesn't always come to people. That's not always the case for some families. And sometimes you have to let it go. That's my case at the moment. And I have a dream board. I'm not afraid to say that. And I'm making sure that when I get that land, I am ready to put things in the ground, and I'm ready to build, and I'm ready to use every resource to my advantage so I am able to do exactly what I want to give to you. And that is just get out, use the skills that I have, and make my dream a reality. And that's what this is all about, folks. So, in saying all of that, I really hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. I hope this gives you the basic knowledge you need to start with your homesteading journey. This is more of an assignment-based thing. Make that dream board. Do it. Figure out what you need. Figure out what you want. Put your necessities down any way that you can do it. And if a dream board doesn't work for you, write it all down. Write it down or list it out. Make an audio note if necessary. But make it tangible so you can go back to it and listen to it and see what you want from it. And that is the basic and first step to becoming a homesteader. All right, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day. This is the Classic Homesteading Practice. Bye.